What's up, everyone? We are back for another LB7 Duramax video. This intro is being made after the video is done because I just wanted to say it got a little hectic. I started working on the engine and then was waiting on parts. Ended up getting the transfer case in, got some other fuel stuff done. I pulled the bed off. I got enough time to do that, but then I finally got the parts for the engine. We got the engine mostly done, still waiting on more parts for that. So hope you guys enjoy this video. Let's get into it. If you did not see the last video, I do have 65 over injectors and a 10 mil stroker CP3, as well as the low pressure fuel lines, new hold down bolts, new return bolts, and I think that's it. I also got high pressure lines. Working on getting some of the other lines, but first I'm going to start with these injectors. I just lied. Glow plugs are actually what I'm going to be installing first, because these are easy and I really want the cylinders to be sealed. The whole goal is to get this engine pretty sealed up. I'll get the exhaust manifold on, then I'll tape the exhaust manifold off, but I want to get this sealed up because these injectors are expensive and I do not want to contaminate them. So I won't show too much of this part on camera, but basically I apply a little high heat anti-seize to the threads and then just put them in, torque them to spec. That's that. There's really nothing special about these. They're pretty boring, so I'll just get these tossed in real quick. For the injectors, obviously leave the plastic on these. Go ahead and take off your nozzle cover. They should come with seals. Any good quality injectors should come with at least the copper washer and the O-ring. That should be pretty standard. And then obviously you're going to slide your hold down on this part of the injector, and then we put our new hold down bolt in. It's very critical that we torque these to spec because the LB7 issues, they have an injector cup. This is called the injector bore right here, and these cups can pop out of here if not properly torqued. Mostly under torqued, but I'm sure over torqued would have a effect on it. But they have cupless bore heads. Those were $3,000. I'm not doing that right now, so we do have new cups in here. I mean, it should be good for now. I'm not using upgraded hold downs. They do have those as well, but I think it'll be fine for the power level that we were going for. So normally what I do on the LYs and up is I lube in here and lube in here on the hold down, and then I put lube all over the injector up until right about here. Fortunately for the LB7s, they're under the valve cover, so they're always in an oil bath, so that is not necessary. The only thing I do is put a little silicone around the O-ring so you don't tear that. The copper washer's already in the bore. I like to preset them in, and then just slide your injector down in, and then they should press in by hand. Do not draw in using the bolt. Just like that, she's popped into place. Now I got all the injectors in. It is time to torque to 37 foot-pounds. We got the DHD hold down bolts in here. It does a 12-point head. These should fasten very well, so I'm gonna torque them all to 37 foot-pounds on the dot. A click style torque wrench works perfectly fine. Just like that. I'll go through, I'll hit all of them, and I'll hit all of them again, and then paint mark it so I know it's torqued. And this is where I realized that I needed the return lines for the injectors because I had stolen them for another project. So I completely started a completely different video. So it sounds like I'm starting fresh, but I'm not. This is the transfer case going in. So the first thing that needs to happen today is the trans is in the truck. The transfer case is not. I need to get this new trans mount in from PPE. I got the red stiffness, of course. Look, a little more vibration in the cab, but it'll keep that trans in place. And then I also have transmission lines, which I'm going to wait to install these until right before I put the engine in, and I'll have to tape these off because I don't want any contamination in the transmission. I do have a new PPE trans cooler coming as well, but for now, let's get this mount in. The thing I will say about these PPE mounts is that they come with all new hardware, which just makes this job 20 times easier, because especially when you're doing these old mounts, the engine mounts, I have the same ones over there. When you're using these old mounts, the bolts are typically pretty rusty, so the fact that they just put in the extra thought and gave you new hardware, that's pretty huge. But basically how this works, this goes to your transmission cross member, this bolts the transmission, and then it is joined together with 4 bolts. And then it comes with new bolts to go up into the transmission, and these are the bolts that go up in the cross member. I don't know what size these are, probably like 15s. I'll verify that before I go under there, but I do use red Loctite on everything, of course. It is a 15. So I'm just going to get it under there, jack the trans up a little bit, and then we'll get this mount slid in. Alright, this is only mildly sketchy. So this is the mount I'm replacing right here. Transmission obviously is right here. And then there's a piece of wood holding up the front of this. And I have a jack under the edge of the pan right here. So basically, I'm just going to jack this up super duper carefully. Alright, just like that. That is back on. Now I need to lower the trans down and get these two holes lined up first. So I'm going to set the camera down and do that real quick. Okay, so I went ahead and got the mount in. I will need to lift this back up and take this off to get that bottom transfer case bolt tightened. But I wanted to do this so when I initially set in the transfer case, it's not going to be all wobbly because I just had the one jack. I don't feel like getting the trans jack out. So next up, I'm going to clean up the surface and bench press a transfer case. All right, now is the part where you watch me get crushed by a transfer case. God, that was heavy. Now that I have the transfer case in, I took the trans mount back out, and now it's time to put in this transfer case brace. So this part, I think this part goes on the transfer case, and then this is the side that goes on the trans. I've never personally installed one of these, but they're pretty super easy to install. You just take a few bolts out and put this in, and then tighten everything down, obviously. Then we'll put the trans mount back in, and then it'll be time to see what we're doing next. Probably something else with the transmission. Because it was so tight under there, I could hardly film where that brace went, but it went pretty easy. It wasn't hard at all. But now we jump a day ahead, and I pulled off the bed. We had this off once. We did not do anything with it. We had to move some stuff around. The bed went back on the truck, and now it's time to pull it back off for good. Okay, so I did not plan ahead. I need a prop for the bed. I know this is absolutely unplanned. I woke up this morning and decided I'm going to pull off the bed and go ahead and get this done. I pulled off the bed by myself, and I'm currently holding it up. I need that broom over there as a prop. I cannot reach it, and I don't want to set this bed down. I've been holding this for about 8 minutes trying to come up with a plan, but we'll have to see what happens. Just give me a second. This is where I ended up. It's totally safe. You just got to trust it. There were a couple dents on the inside of the bed, right there in the wheel well. So I will get a hammer and tap out those little small dents. I'm going to sand all of this down. This is going to be flat black right here. And then this is all going to be the same black as the chassis. This bed's actually in really good shape. There's not a lot of rust. Up there, there's a little bit starting, so I'll take care of that. And then obviously just the frame parts of the bed. These little cross members, they're all rusty. Every cat is like this, unless you do something about it. But behind the flares, we are clean and good to go. This heat shield for the exhaust I'll probably take out of here because it really doesn't do anything anyway. But the bottom side of the bed will be the same color black as the chassis. Just basic, because I don't really care about the underside of the bed. But let's get to work on this. All right, this is arguably more unsafe than what I was just doing with the props. But I could finally work under here. Glad I went ahead and took that off because you can see there's tons of flake behind there. All that's pretty nasty, so I'll scrap that. I need to get the shop cleaned up because it's kind of a mess in here. And then we'll get to prepping the rest of this and then some paint. I did not show much of the bed because it was pretty boring. It was me with a grinder for 2 hours and then some paint. That was literally all it was. It was nothing that fancy. I'll show you guys the bed in a second, how that turned out. It really turned out great. But over here with the fast situation, I should have done a sump. I did not. I didn't hardly know anything about these things. I knew it's a fuel pump, but I didn't understand how it actually draws out of the tank and returns. So I should have done a sump. I put this on like months ago, but I got to clean up these hoses so they don't rub. So I have some of that hard plastic loom that I hate, like that stuff. Hate that stuff, but it's going to work good for this. So I need to get all of this cleaned up. This rope was rubbing on the bed, so I got to turn this a little bit. I should have cut that and put it down a little more, but it is where it is right now. I can cut off a little more without a kink in that hose, so I'll probably chop a little off that, and then I'll have to get the wiring or the wiring loom around this. This is how it's mounted right now. Obviously, the bolt will go up through the bed, so this is just temporary. I'm not going to actually keep that, but overall, there's really not a lot to do. I have a T for the airlines because most of the airline kits, they don't have a T in them, so you can just combine them on one line. So I do have that. I need to get a brake light harness. I stole that for the other truck. It's just small things like this that I forget that I need. But I'm gonna get these airlines set up. I like how I have this stuff right now. If I want to add more wiring in the future, I put these bands right here. I don't remember what these bolts are for. I think these are fifth wheel mounting, but I have these little loom things on them. So if I want to run wiring along the frame, I have a good spot to do that. So I'll have to get this. That's supposed to be zip tied right there to get it to where the bed's not going to crush it, but I'll get these brake lines cleaned up. I shouldn't have left that open, but whatever. And then the rear diff, I only have one thing of fluid right now, so I'm going to put that in it, jack it up, spin it, so everything gets lubricated. Because it's definitely sat dry for a little bit. I mean, it's not really going to hurt it, but they're not supposed to sit dry. There's still oil in there. It's not like I used brake clean and hosed it all out. Maybe I did and I forgot, but it's whatever. I'll have to get a little more fluid. I think they take like 2 quarts, 3 quarts. Something like that. But overall, the back of the frame is pretty much put back together. I do have traction bars on the way, and the drive shaft is aluminum. I kind of want to polish it. I saw it on TikTok. It actually looked pretty cool. So I guess I will start with getting that fast set up. First, I'm going to show you guys the bed. So the bed, I did the paint off camera. There really wasn't anything to this. The fifth wheel holes drive me crazy, so I definitely will put the rails back in just to cover those up because I hate those holes there. But I got flat black in the wheel liners here. Pretty basic. I smoothed everything out. It's actually nice and smooth. Can't really see very well, but this I just sprayed with the basic Ace rust stop. It's cheap and I had a lot of it. So that's what the bottom of the bed got, really just to protect it from rust. A lot of this stuff in the corners I couldn't get out because it was like still good metal, so you're not going to really see this. I don't really care about it that much, honestly. I just wanted to make it look nice, not rusty. But the wheel liners I actually did take some more time on. Wheel liners look pretty good. There's a couple spots of surface rust right here. Like, you can see that stuff was just barely starting, so I need to sand that down. Ideally, this truck would get a whole paint job, but that's not going to happen right now, so I have these spray paint cans to match this paint code. I don't remember exactly what it's called right now. I think it's dark spiral gray metallic or something like that. But overall, there's no rust on this side, a little rust on that side. The rust was very minimal. There's barely any bit on the lip here, but this will all get an extra layer of paint over it to try and get that rust to not come through. And then I got to get the fender liners resealed because I will put these back on. I don't like how these trucks look without them on, so I think I'm gonna go start working on the fast now. I'm just gonna take that much off. Obviously you got to use a hose clamp on the return side. It's not a barbed fitting, but gotta shove that on there. Give me a second. Okay, that's about all I can do. It's barely starting to crease right there. I can tell if I pull any tighter that will kink, so obviously don't want that. I guess I don't really have anything else to do with this besides wrap it. I'll go find the wrap. I already got the whole frame harness done. This brake line I did route incorrectly. I somehow went over this cross member. It's supposed to go under it, but I also don't really care that much. It works where it's at. Because I hate this brake line kit, by the way. I think it's from Dorman. Just make your own brake lines. These kits suck to do. The lines, they come, obviously you can't ship a line that's the size of the truck, so they crease the lines and have these little tags where you're supposed to bend in between the lines, and it's just a nightmare. So get your own copper line into the tools. I promise it is not worth the headache of having pre-bent lines. Sounds like a great idea. It's not. Obviously you'll have to get the soft lines still, but I'm gonna go ahead and go find the loom. I'm back using the wiring loom that I hate so very much. This is for the airlines. So the way I have the airlines, this airbag kit, I don't really like this kit. I think this is the pack brake kit. The airlift kit is very similar to this. I just don't really like them for this truck. This airline comes out this way. This one's a little easier to make clean, but that one you got to like kind of loop up and over. But anyway, I was pulling the line tight, and I realized that if I try and make this corner right here, it's going to probably rub, and I really don't want to do airlines on this. So I figured might as well just go ahead and wrap it. This stuff's cheap. I have a ton of it. So the plan is to run this one along right here. I'll use these small holes to kind of keep it straight. Probably going to use a license plate bolt because I'd like to do a roll pan on this. So license plate bolt I think is going to be the move here. So I'll probably meet up until right about here and then cut both of the lines, keep a little extra obviously, but just get these ran to about right here and get this cut down. All right, so all of today, I've just been working on some small stuff on the engine. Had to get this fan pulley on, coolant crossover needs torque to spec, and the water pump needs installed the rest of the way. But the part I was waiting on is finally here. I got these used return lines from eBay I got to clean up, so we can finally get these injectors done and then get these valve covers on for good. So I'm going to finish up the front real quick, and then we'll get right into that. We are back under the valve covers. What we got to do here is get the return lines on, get the solenoids hooked up, and then we'll have to pull these off because that is the injector feed, which I'm going to cover that back up before I get contamination in there. I'll get that cleanish, whatever. But we'll get all the plastic removed because the lines go over the valve covers. So I've seen guys forget these on the Facebook groups, and they got to take the valve cover back off, and that's a pain. So what I do is I put all the seals on here, put all the return bolts through, including the one on the end, and then I just set it on and then thread them all in by hand. After I get this on, I'm probably going to get this cleaned up, and then we'll get the harness on and get the valve cover on for good. Now I'm going to go through and torque all these. These are all supposed to be 12 foot-pounds. I believe I saw conflicting results, but I'm going to do 12 foot-pounds on that bolt and these bolts, and then we'll get the lower valve cover on. I got the new rubber seal on this, and then I got these guys installed as well. It's time to open up the ARP bolts and get this on the motor. I went ahead and got the injector harnesses on, really nothing fancy. Just put a little bit of silicone under this, and then a little on the sides, and then just a light layer. See, I barely put any on that. I mean, this isn't really critical. Like, it's not like there's pressurized oil up here. This is just to keep it all in, keep stuff from getting in the motor. So now I'm going to get the upper valve cover on, and then we'll get the fuel rail on. This ARP kit also comes with bolts for the upper valve cover. After this is done, the injector lines have to go on next because that's an easy way to get contamination down in there. So I'm going to hurry up and get this done. So after I edited this video, I realized I never showed the CP3 install. I installed it. I think I showed some on TikTok, but I just must have forgot to do it for YouTube. But it is a 10mm LBZ based CP3 from Dan's Diesel Performance. I did install that, and I installed the intake manifolds. So completely forgot about that, but that is installed. Now that I got on this valve cover, I'm going to go ahead and port the fuel rail fittings. So I already did it. Basically what you do is you just run a drill bit down through these. These go on the rail. It's just right there on the edge of the rail. This is what feeds the rail. And you can see the stock versus ported. It's quite the difference. That's stock. This is what feeds your rail. So at higher RPMs, especially with the aftermarket stuff, the rails can starve for fuel. So this is why I poured this one. I went 7/64. You can go up to 1/8, or you can buy these already done. They're at 1/8. They're shiny and they're new, and they're also $40. So drilling it works perfectly fine. Just got to make sure everything's clean and there's no metal on the inside. But I'm gonna get this installed back in the rail. I just went some flat black paint on this. It's not really anything fancy, but I love how this flat black dries. It's always a very smooth surface when it's done, but I don't want to get too fancy with those because I don't really care. It's just a fuel rail. But now I'm going to shim the PRV for the fuel. So basically what that is it's this right here. This, once rail pressure gets to a certain point, this opens and starts to return. Since we're running a 10mm LBZ based CP3, we don't want this to open until about 30-ish thousand PSI. The stock one, I think, opens at like 26-ish maybe. But basically, this is going to reduce pressure spikes. Give me a second, I'll explain something. So what I was going to do is this line is going to get out of here. I'll explain that in a different video. But this was going to replace this right here. What this is it is a race valve. Basically what this does is it completely eliminates the return, which I thought was a good idea until I did some more research into this. Basically, yes, running high rail pressure, it's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. But whenever you're doing a big pull and you let off, all that extra pressure that's made by the CP3, when your injectors close off, there's nowhere for that to go. And that's when this is supposed to crack open and feed everything back to return. 32,000 PSI is what I'd like this to be at. The injectors can spike much higher than that. But basically, whenever you put this in here and you eliminate that return, that rail pressure stays in the rail and then is shoved through the injectors. And it's not healthy for them. There's seals in the injectors that are rated for a certain PSI, and this is going to exceed that, and it might hurt the new $5,000 injection system. So we're not going to be doing that. I'm going to shim this with some washers. I used some forums from 2008 of how to do this. Exergy does have one, but they're $300. I don't really want to spend $300, but we're going to shim this one instead. I'll just go ahead and explain this line real quick. This is the feed line from the tank. So basically, your tank's back there, and then there's the fast that comes up to the engine bay. Feeds through here, through the FICM and the fuel filter, factory fuel filter. Both of those are going to be eliminated. The FICM will not have fuel flowing through it, and the stock filter will be just gone. I'm not going to be using it. Basically, this line is going to go straight to the CP3, so that is going to get this out of here. And then that basically leaves me with just the return system. After this video is done, I will be going through all of this off camera. I got to get all the lines cleaned up and ran properly. Essentially, this distribution block I will put in place this one. This one's kind of in rough shape, but I'll get this line out of here. But not a lot to this, but I will show me shimming the PRV while I wait for that paint to dry. This line right here, I unfortunately just bent, but it's in bad shape anyway, and I definitely have one that's in pretty good shape right here. So I'll have to get that swapped out. This won't look as terrible whenever I'm done with it. Just got to get this off of here. I'm definitely stupid because I need to be taking this off, so I don't know why I undid that one, but let's get this one off instead. Inside the PRV, it's kind of hard to see, but there is an Allen shape down in there. I'm going to hopefully not round that off. If not, I have a second chance. But you can kind of see it right there. Okay, so basically what we'll have going on here is there's a cap and there's like a spring in here. There's like a little valve, if it'll come out. Possibly. Okay, down in there's like the little poppet thing that opens. So basically what we're going to be doing is adding in a washer or two so it takes more pressure for this to open. Just grab this little nut right here, about the size of two 4mm washers, but not exactly because I don't have any 4mm washers. We're just going to drop this guy into this side. Make sure it gets flat down in there. And then the spring will go on here. That just makes the spring stick up higher. And we just kind of... Then we got to get this tightened down onto that. It was already spring loaded from the start. It's not just going to be even harder to get back on. Okay, got it started. If this is something I need to go back and adjust, it will not be that hard to do. I can either add or take away. Just have to watch rail pressure, get some actual runs in. There we go. That's pretty tight. Okay, so now I'll go put this back on the distribution block. No clue what spec is on these, but they're good and tight. Good enough. I got the fuel rail back on the engine. Now it's time to pull off these caps and actually put on the injector lines. So on these injector lines, it's pretty easy to tell where everything goes because they only go on one way. Basically, the way I do it is I shove in the bottom first. Careful not to get any contaminants shoved down with it. You just got to kind of line these up. The bottom, I like to start first, just because you can't see if these leak. You can see if these leak. So I always like to get the bottom on a few threads, or a lot more threads than the top, so I know that that one is going to line up correctly. And then I will start the top some more. And then when I tighten them, I tighten the bottom side first, and then the top side second. So I'm going to go through and get all these put on real quick. We're using the fleece lines, of course. These suck to open so bad because they do the thing where they set all the lines on, and then the plastic shrinks down around it, and it goes like all over the injector lines, which is great. They're packaged great, but when it's time to open them, they kind of suck. All right, I got all the injector lines on and tightened. There really wasn't too much to that, honestly. I still have to do the other side. That side I got to do some TikToks with, so that is probably what I'll be doing on that side, but it's looking pretty good. I need the T4 flange from Whirly Custom Fab. It's a high-rise T4 pedestal for an S300. I guess I can probably get the exhaust on later, but we got about one video left on the motor after parts come in, essentially, and this will be getting dropped in the truck. The pedestal and Y bridge is what I want to get done next, or what I have to get done next, and then obviously we got to get the fuel lines ran over and get the wiring harness ran, but overall, the motor's coming along pretty well. Again, I can't remember if I said we're getting a fluid damper. I know I said it in one of the last videos, and a billet flywheel for the back, which I already have. That's going to really try and save this crank. It also has main studs. If I can keep the crank in one piece, then we're going to be good, which I shouldn't have an issue with that. All right, so I think that's going to be it for today's video. I know it was a little hectic because I didn't know if those parts were going to be in. Now that the parts are done and the transmission's mostly done, I just have to get the engine in the chassis, get the chassis finished up, and then we should be good to start for the first time. So thank you guys for watching. See you later.